Algebraic equations using fractions and decimals. Two samples are done for you to refer to, and then we'll do 3 together, which leaves you with 3, which you can do. I know. Let's start with number 1. Good place to start. 12 equals 1/4 x. This right here is our variable term, and it's already by itself. That means we're ready to isolate just the x. But we have this fraction. Remember what I've told you. When you want to get rid of the bottom number of a fraction, the denominator, you simply multiply that whole term by the denominator. Since it's 4, we'll multiply this whole thing by 4 and this by 4. Since it's algebra, you have to do it to both sides. 4 times 12 is 48 equals, we got rid of the bottom number. They canceled out. So now we're left with 1x, or just x. And what do you know? We solved the problem. Basically, that says 1/4 of a number is 12. Is this true? 1/4 of 48 is 12. Is that true? 1/4 of 48 is 12? Yes. 1/4 of 48 is indeed 12. So we know that equation is correct. Number 2. You know, on all of these, I see that the variable term is already isolated, so the only thing that you have to do is isolate just the variable, so there's essentially just one step in these. Right now, we have 4.3n, so we'll divide both sides by 4.3. This cancels out. We're left with n equals, and so I will need to get myself some scrap paper to solve this. I have 77.4 divided by 4.3. 77.4 divided by 4.3. Well then, you could use a calculator, but we're not going to. 2, you can't divide with the decimal in the divisor. So we're going to have to multiply this by 10 and make it 43. If we multiply that by 10, we have to also multiply this by 10. And that becomes 774. 2 whole numbers, that's nice. Now, 4 goes into 77, no, 43 goes into 77 just one time. 1 times 43 is 43. When I subtract, I get 34. Bring down the 4. I'm going to say 8. My guess is 8 because 4 goes into 34 8 times. Goes into 32. Let's see if I'm right. I'm pretty confident I'm right. 8 times 3 is 24. Ooh-hoo. It's either going to be right or it's going to be over. 8 times 4 is 32, 33. Ah, it's right. What do you know? Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. You have to redo it. I have no decimals here because I had to move it to here. So, 18. The value of 77 4/10 divided by 4 3/10 is 18. Number 4, 1/2 e equals 57. I need to isolate just the e, but I have this fraction here with the 2 in the denominator. Since I want to get rid of the fraction, I'm going to multiply it by 2. That cancels out the 2. But this is algebra, so I have to do the same thing on both sides always. So I'm left with 1e, or e. 57 times 2 is 114. Ha, did it in my head. Now let's think about this. Does this make sense? 1/2 of 114 is 57. So if you break this in half, is it 57? I know for a fact it is, yes. Half of this is 57, so that's right. You have these 3 left. There's a decimal there, so remember when you divide, you cannot have a decimal in the divisor, so make sure you move the decimal. And you got those. Now we did that, let's just have some fun, because, you know, fun is fun. We're going to find out why poets are poor, and we will do some algebra to find out. And just like the last page, these are all one-step equations. They're not difficult, not at all. Number 12. I've got my scrap paper, since they don't have room. You can use notebook paper and write them out. If I were doing more than just these 4, I would get notebook paper and write it out, but I'm just doing 4, so I don't need a big old piece of paper. All right, so just as before, all of these variable terms are already isolated. They're already by themselves. So all you have to do now is isolate just a little tiny variable. I have a fraction with the denominator, so I'm going to multiply the fraction, this whole fraction term, by the denominator. So 25 equals negative 1/8 t. I want to get rid of the 8, so I'll multiply both sides by 8. Make that look more like a t than a plus. 8 times negative 25. That's, okay, 8 quarters is $2, so it's 200. Negative, because it's a positive times a negative, negative 200 equals, when I multiplied this whole term by 8, canceled out, so now I have negative 1t, or just negative t. If negative t is negative 200, then positive t is positive 200. And it can also be written like this. So the value for t, for 12, the value for t in 12 is 200. On to 14. So this one has the denominator on top of it. So we've got negative 1 equals r over 50. Just so you know, this is really the same thing. You can also write this as negative 1 equals 150 r. Either way, the r is a whole number. What you do from here to here is you take that r and you just pull it out, this in front of it. It's the same thing. All right, so I actually prefer it written this way. So a lot of times when I'm solving equations, if they're written like this, they're written like this right here with the 1/8 t, I'll change it to t over 8. And it's the same thing. Anyhow. And the steps to solve them are exactly the same too. I will multiply both sides by 50 so I can get rid of the fraction and get just the r by itself. That cancels out. I'm left with negative 50. 50 times negative 1 is negative 50 equals r. Well, I have a final answer. Well, that was easy. And that makes sense. Negative 50 divided by 50 is negative 1. That definitely makes sense. Now on to 20. Negative 19 equals negative 1/2 d. Remember, I can write that both ways. I can put it negative 19 equals negative 1/2 d. I can also write it like this. negative 19 equals negative d over 2. It's both the same. I mean, exactly the same thing. This is with that d pulled out over here. This is how it's written, so this is how we're going to solve it. The denominator is 2. We want to get rid of it. The variable term is already isolated. Remember, you have to do that first. And in these equations, it's already done. So don't get too impulsive to start getting rid of denominators when you still have other terms with the variable term. But in this case, we have no other terms, so we can multiply by the denominator, which is 2. So 2 times negative 19 is negative 38. These cancel out. I'm left with negative 1d, or negative d. And of course, if negative 38 is negative d, then positive 38 is positive d. Finally. All right, x divided by 24 equals 4. That could be written as 1 over 24x equals 4. It could be written like that, and it would be the same thing. But since I definitely like these better, I am definitely going to solve it this way. There's just less stuff here. You don't have the 1, you don't have the 24 over here. This looks simpler to me. X over 24 equals 4. Multiplied by the denominator. Cancels out, and you have x equals 4 times 24 is 4 times 4 is 6. I almost got it wrong. 96. I almost said 86. 96. The value of 21x is 96. All right, so the directions say to cross out all of my answers. So I have 200, T. Found it. See, a little worried. And then I have 50. Okay, it doesn't matter what the letters are, just 50. What have I done? Negative 50. Oh, here it is. Oh, it was hiding from me for sure. 20 is 38. Okay, found that one faster. And 21 is 96. 96, here it is. Whew. All right, so we have eliminated those 4, and that is 4 closer to solving the riddle.